everybody, welcome back to the Law and Crime Network. I'm Michael Bryant, along with Mike Korbanix, the Law and Crime Analyst and Criminal Defense Attorney. Also, Anna Carlsen is here. Good to have you. Have not had you on the table here with me, and I'm glad to have you here.
It's great to be here.
She is a defense attorney, a new public defender with the New York City office, right?
Yes,
Friend of Brian Buckmeyer?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'll try not to hold that against you. So, as we go through the afternoon here, we have the Henry Segura case underway, live out of Tallahassee, Florida. So we're going to get back into that courtroom. The defense case is underway. The prosecution rested not long ago. On the stand now, this is Jason Bundy. He is the second DNA expert for the defense that's been on the stand today. So let's find out what he's talking about. Let's go in live. So a bit of a sidebar there, and while they do that, it gives me a chance to bring you up to speed on another case we're covering here on the network. You know, out of Iowa, the case against Christian Rivera for the death of Molly Tibbetts, the Iowa college student who was jogging and then gone and ultimately found about a month later in a cornfield there in Iowa. Well, they had some suppression hearing activity yesterday and today. The bottom line is the defense is trying to keep the confession of Mr. Rivera out of the trial, which is now scheduled for February. They have completed that process, but the judge has taken the matter under submission, as they tend to do in these cases. It's not law and order. They don't have to wrap it up in 58 minutes. So it'll be a few days, perhaps weeks, certainly before the trial, because depending on what he cuts out of that alleged confession based on improper Miranda warnings, there may be some issues the prosecutor has to deal with in terms of moving forward with the case. So we will, of course, keep you posted on that case out of Iowa against Mr. Rivera. In the meantime, we are in the Florida case. Henry Segura there on a quick sidebar. We'll keep an eye on the courtroom, see what's going on there. Gives me a quick chance to talk to first Anna Carlsen. Thank you again for joining me. I appreciate it. And
Always
Mike Korbanix is here. So, DNA. This is odd, I think, to see two DNA experts for the defense. So that's a three-pack of DNA experts in this case. That's a lot of DNA.
It is, and you always run the risk of the jury losing attention, losing focus. DNA is a major issue in the case, but it might be overkill.
So, Mike, if you're looking at the focus of this DNA, it seems to me with the little bit there was found in the first place, the defense is just saying, we're going to pile on here. We're going to make it very clear to this jury the absence of DNA is what they should focus on.
Well, I think you're more effective focusing on the absence of DNA through their DNA expert, the prosecution's. I think you just stand a lot stronger when you get their expert to agree with you and not have to put on for the defense. I mean, the burden of proof is always on the prosecution. When you start putting on a defense, you give the prosecution the opportunity to start showing the weakness of your defense, not only the strength of their prosecution. I think this is a distraction. I think when you had the person admitting to the murder earlier, that's sort of like a high note I'd like to end on, as opposed to this, because this is really losing the jury.
Yeah, I got you on that. And so we'll see what the jury does with this, but we do believe the defense is winding down as well, maybe today, maybe tomorrow. Let's go back into court. Back on the stand is this DNA expert. Case there against Henry Segura in Florida. They're on a quick break. I would not be surprised to hear the defense either rest or come close to it, maybe one more witness before they wrap things up. That is the expected schedule. So Michael Korbanix is here, Anna Carlsen here. Let's talk about, we were talking about the DNA, and I think it's tough to avoid when the jury's so battered with this evidence or lack of evidence. Familial DNA. I see you nodding, Anna. You're very familiar with this concept. So explain what that all means and why the defense is using it here, or that concept.
Well, I think what the defense is trying to do here is suggest that they're seeing what looks like the profile from Mr. Segura in the bathroom. They're suggesting that that profile is not actually from Mr. Segura, that you're looking at a DNA profile that resembles his because it's his biological son's DNA. And so the biological son of Mr. Segura is going to share a number of alleles with him. And I think the questioning of this last witness was trying to bring out the suggestion that maybe it's not Mr. Segura's DNA, it's his male biological son's, which would resemble his.
And I know that's the newest thing, the newest crazy thing in DNA, and it's led authorities to find new suspects in cases that have been very cold because they can trace through the familial DNA. Michael Korbanix, you know, you hit it, I think, when you said we should just stop with the guy who said, I ordered the hit, it's on me. Any idea why the defense felt they should go to this degree with further evidence or again, the lack of evidence on the DNA front?
I really don't. I question it seriously because, I mean, all the prosecution has to get up and say DNA to the DNA expert. There was a guy in here before, the Santos guy. Did you check his DNA? Did you see his DNA anywhere? You already have a win when Segura's DNA should be all over the place because he lived there. He visited there often. He was in and out.
It would be shocking if there was zero DNA. In fact, I'm a little surprised at the level of DNA they found. I would have expected much more.
I agree with you.
Okay, so Mr. Santos, quite the expected witness in the defense case, and he, in fact, took the stand this morning. Just to give you a refresher, remember, this is the guy who is a Vice Lord's muckety-muck, I guess. I'm not sure that's an official phrase within the gang community. But he says he ordered the hit. He took the stand. The problem is he's kind of taken responsibility for a couple of other murders that he maybe didn't commit, so his credibility is certainly at issue. Let's listen to a little bit of Mr. Santos from this morning. Well, somebody has taken credit for these murders, and that's James Santos, who says he's kind of the guy that called the hit. Now, you might remember, this is a retrial. The original trial was back in July of 2017, ended in an 8-4 hung jury, but in favor of acquittal. In between that time, this guy took the fifth and didn't appear in that first trial. And in the meantime, before this trial, he sent a bunch of letters to the judge saying things like, she wronged us, he could be green lighted, he says. In other words, killed in prison if he was connected to this matter. And then he says, I want it known that I am the one that put the plan together that led to 4 deaths. I refuse to place anyone inside the house. This was all via letter. There were a number of letters presented, and now, of course, he's taken the stand because it was his opinion, Mike Gorbanix, that he was lied to initially and told that the people that he sent to do the hit were not going to be involved, and yet they were. They were identified and testified in the first trial. So he's using this trial as kind of a get even and maybe, hey, I need a little spotlight here. What do you think about him?
He's interesting to say the least. One of the things, though, about him is you could see why a lot of people think if you just say I committed a crime, you can be prosecuted, but a confession alone is not enough to bring charges. You need some corroborating evidence. That's why I'm a little skeptical as to why the defense is putting on DNA experts when the prosecution in their cross-examination of defense witnesses could really show that there's nothing to corroborate what this guy is saying other than his braggadocio.
What do you think, Anna? Do you like this guy? Do you think he's a little shaky? What's your impression?
Well, I can absolutely see how he ties into the defense theory because his testimony places female associates at the scene. He says that he uses men and women to go in and commit this hit. And a major issue in this case is the fact that you have foreign DNA, in other words, DNA that's not from Mr. Segura, not from any person living in the home, that's present at the scene.
Yes, and we've heard from a gang expert just this morning in early afternoon that says, in fact, that's a typical thing that gangs do. They have the woman knock on the door, get the inhabitant to open, thinking, hey, it's just a, Avon lady, and then boom, the people come in and take charge. Let's go back to more of the testimony from Mr. Santos. This is the cross-examination. Well, what do you think? I mean, there is the cross-examination of Mr. Santos, and if you're wondering, well, he's dressed in kind of, I don't know, prison clothes. He is in federal prison. Apparently sent a threatening letter to the governor of Florida, Charlie Crist, and said things like, I'm going to kill you. And so he's serving 151 months. That sentence imposed in 2016. I don't know the math, but that's about a 13-year sentence, something like that. Anyway, so, Michael, what do you think about the impact, what he's admitting to, on his current sentence and his current situation? It's not like he's serving a life sentence. He's going to get out.
Well, that's sort of the bizarreness of this all. Quite frankly, I'm a little surprised the prosecution didn't ask for a competency hearing before he testified.
You think he's a little off?
It seems. I mean, first of all, why would you come forward to admit to something that's going to expose you to the life sentence, or in this case, a death penalty, when you only have a little bit to serve? And if your answer to that is because I was worried that the gang would get to me and kill me for allowing her to steal, I think they have to delve a little further in cross-examination by the prosecution if, in fact, he is actually a member of this gang.
I'm a little surprised, Anna. You think what a witness might bring to the table, you read about them. Until you see them, you can't really evaluate their importance. And I'm not as impressed with Mr. Santos as I expected. How about you?
I mean, I think they've called him because he does provide some powerful doubt.
If you believe him, it's a win.
Yeah.
That's the problem. I mean, do you believe him?
I mean, I think that he's pretty self-aggrandizing, and I really don't think that there's much physical evidence that backs up his story.
He just wants to be the big guy. I want to be the big man on campus in prison. Okay, well, we're going to take a quick break. Coming back, the court is looks like they're ramping up again there in Florida in the case against Henry Segura. The defense case underway. We believe that's winding down as well. So stay where you are. This is the Law&Crime Network. Be right back.